Hey guys, welcome back to another episode of Opposite the Monitor, and today we're going to get into Payday 3 and their god-awful server issues. We also got some more information on possibly Xbox exiting the gaming industry per Phil Spencer's quotes, I guess. I don't know how true that is, but possibly later on, due to Xbox Game Pass subscription users. So we got a couple things to get into today, but yeah, man, I want to start off by saying, man, some great stuff has been shown off lately, man. I saw some gameplay from Dragon's Dogma 2. Man, that game looks amazing. Can't wait to play that. Also got some Final Fantasy 7 Rebirth gameplay as well. There's a lot of stuff that had dropped over the past course of the few days due to like Tokyo Game Show and stuff like that. But yeah, man, I was literally just, that was on my brain, like, for the past 2 days. I'm like, man, Dragon's Dogma looks amazing. I thought it was going to be co-op, but it was, they have the AI companions, which they seem to be functioning pretty well within that gameplay scenario that they showed off. Granted, it could just be curated too as well, but yeah, it looked really good. It looked amazing, man. I'm excited for that. But let's kick it off, man. Payday 3 gives update on server problems. Payday 3 gives fans an update on the online only multiplayer shooters ongoing server and matchmaking problems. Yeah, I think I mentioned something about this in my last video about like Forza Motorsport being a live service title and it always being online. And this is what I'm saying about like these always online games, that you don't need to make the entire game always online. I don't know what this new trend of trying to make everything always online for and have stuff always interconnected. Every game doesn't need that. Some games, yes, some games have to have that requirement based around the structure of the game in and of itself, MMOs, stuff like that. You know what I'm saying? But this is kind of like the issue with it when, if you're not confident enough that the servers that you have up can support the amount of players that you can anticipate, which granted, I understand anticipating a certain level of a certain player base level on day one can be extremely difficult. But I mean, you can kind of gauge that through pre-orders. You can kind of gauge that through, early access, and engagement and stuff like that. How many people were able to get in early access? This is one of the reasons why you have and they had beta tests and stuff before, but this is one of the reasons why I'll support open betas and stuff like that. So then that way it allows developers to stress test their servers, prior to the game actually releasing. And so we'll just kind of go over a few highlights first, and then I'll get into some of my points that I've highlighted. But a few of the highlighted points that they have here from Game Rant is Payday 3 has been experiencing serious server problems since its early access period, and these issues have persisted after its official launch. Yeah, it's kind of like, and now granted, like I got invited to early access as well as like a beta test. I didn't really run into too many issues. I didn't experience too many server issues or anything like that. Granted, I could just be the exception to the rule. Just because I haven't experienced it doesn't mean other people aren't experiencing it either. They're going to say that the developers are working to resolve the issues, but many problems still persist, and players are reporting that the servers have gone down again. And then they also go on to say that the game's always online nature means that when the servers are down, players cannot play at all, and even when they are up, players are still struggling to matchmake. Yeah, these are all commonalities and things that you run into when you have games that are always online, man. Like, it's ridiculous. Like I said before, every game doesn't need to be always online. You can separate single player from multiplayer, and that creates a better experience. Yes, there's a lot more work that needs to be done on the back end as far as pushing out patches and updates and stuff like that, but this is where assessing risk and reward comes into play, and effectively trying to determine what is more risky and mitigating the risk versus what kind of reward and outcome you can get by the specific decision that you're making. And so having like an always online game makes streamlining patching for the game and dropping content easier on the back end for developers, but you run into the risk of, well, if you don't make sure that your servers can sustain this amount of this quantity of players, then that is a more of a risk than streamlining patches for, updates or trying to put in content. Like, again, I go back to say, sometimes these developers put the cart before the horse a lot of the times, and you're thinking too much about the end goal versus like, what is in my immediate control at this particular moment. And so they kind of go on to say, and I want to talk about this too as well. It says, during Payday 3's early access, some players struggled to get past the login screen, while others were unable to find anyone to play with using the game's matchmaking system. Payday 3's full release has seen those problems carry over, with the added headaches of the servers going down and making the game completely inaccessible. Like I said before, I didn't necessarily run into that issue. I was able to kind of matchmake pretty quickly with, randoms and stuff like that during the early access period. And so, I know they had a bunch of different, early access. I know they had a bunch of different, beta tests early on. I didn't necessarily get into the initial early access one, like the beginning one. I kind of got into the later stages of it, but even then during my playtest, I didn't get affected by any server issues. So like I said, I could just be the exception to the rule, but having this particular issue occur and happen, frequently. And then it's also troubling to see that this is starting to become a trend with other developers and stuff like that. I think you're going to start seeing a lot of games go online only and then running into these day one issues. And this is why I kind of always like advocate for not necessarily like pre-ordering day one unless you have absolute confidence in the development studio that you choose to buy a game from. Like for me, I don't pre-order games, but I will pre-order a game from a studio that has a good track record and, that has a good track record. Granted, I think this is Starbreeze, Payday developers, I don't recall them ever having issues with, Payday in the past like this. Granted, Payday in the past that game wasn't just simply an online only game. I think this is their first Payday that's online only. Payday 2 wasn't like that. Payday 2, you can just, even if you didn't have even if you weren't connected to the internet or have a network connection, you could still play like a solo round with just AI, and then you can command the AI. So yeah, this is kind of like from what I can tell with the Payday series is that this is kind of like their first like outing as online only and stuff. So, this was a risk for them to take, as well. Like I said, it goes back into like that risk mitigation and risk and reward and trying to figure out, what is the best particular decision to make to get the specific outcome that you're looking for. But they go on to kind of give like a status update, because this has been happening over a course of a few days now since its launch. But, they go on to say that status update, things are starting to look better. We're seeing players being able to create lobbies again and getting back in the game. You still might have a few issues. Bear with us while we focus on stabilizing. Thank you, Heisters. So yeah, man, I mean, another good thing too is that it's great to see that they're giving, status updates and stuff like that. Cause that's one thing I didn't see with Gran Turismo. When Gran Turismo's servers shit to bed, like at the beginning and stuff like that, like, that they didn't say anything. They were ghost for like at least like a week or a week and a half of just that entire game just being down. They didn't say anything, as well as they had egregious monetization and ridiculous grind in that game as well. But it's good to see that they're giving a status update. It's good to see that they're letting people know they're actively working on the issue, stuff like that. But yeah, man, like, this is definitely like, not a good look, I would say, for, an initial launch of a game. The first impressions for, games is always, an important thing, especially given the fact that Payday 3 is an established franchise and IP. There's a certain set of expectations that come with that as well. So, you're going to have to need to be able to, be as thorough as possible, But I just think that since Payday 3 is the first online only game, I could be mistaken, but I'm pretty sure Payday 1 and Payday 2, they were both not always online. So given the fact that this is the first like always online title out of this franchise, like it was definitely a risky move to make. But yeah, I got one more point to make here too, though, that I think they should do. But it goes on to say that it remains to be seen how long it would take for the developers to sort out the issues of Payday 3, or if there will be any kind of in-game compensation for fans who bought the game and are currently unable to play it. I think they should do that. If you got your community who purchased the game, man, you need to reward them with something, given the fact that they have to, experience, these issues, especially given the fact of, online only is a decision that developers make. It's not like that's out of the control of the gamer. You know what I'm saying? So and it's always been in good faith too, to like, you can kind of bring people back around if they have to experience, certain types of issues, and then you can give them like some, free skins or like custom skins or whatever like that, or, what I'm saying, stuff like that can, restore, the excitement for your game, essentially. You know what I'm saying? Because most people are understandable when it comes to, especially like if you're a gamer and you play a lot of early access games and stuff like that. Like I know for me, like I'm a lot more understanding now than I used to be. Before I was a PC gamer, I was like, man, why are my games always, this? I was always to get pissed and mad about certain things like that. But given the fact of like I've been a PC gamer for, going on 8-9 years at this point and stuff like that, and I've played so many different early access games from different genres and stuff like that. It's like, it's a little, it kind of humbles you a little bit and makes you a little bit more understanding of, developers and the time they put in and game development and stuff like that. You know what I'm saying? Granted, like, when you run into this type of stuff, this can definitely be frustrating and annoying on the customer's end, because you pay your hard-earned money to buy or to experience a game that should be working day one, or a product that should be working day one. Everyone knows that if you purchase something and it doesn't work day one, you have the ability to return it. And so like, given the fact that, you got fans of the series that like the game or whatever, do something for them, give them a little bit of, currency or something like that to be able to purchase new skins, or just give them skins outright in general. I think you should, that's not a, uncommon thing. Like it's very much so common, in that type of space. I mean, like, Call of Duty can do it. Like they've done it, you know what I'm saying? So, I mean, like, I think they should definitely go down that route. But yeah, man, Payday 3 has definitely been getting some backlash due to these server issues. But I mean, that's just one of the things that come with trying to do an online only game. If you're going to go ahead and do an online only game, then you have to make sure that the servers are pristine. You have to make sure that is your main focus, because without the servers, all of the other shit that you put into the game won't function at all. So you need to be able to kind of like make sure that is where it needs to be, and then content can come later. Content can come later. As long as people can get their hands on the game, play the game with the content that's in there. Maybe there's a few bugs. That's perfectly fine. That doesn't matter if the game itself is not even playable. If people can't even get in lobbies or matchmake with people, because this is a team-based game. If people can't even do that, then all of the extra stuff does not matter. So, that's why I'm trying to like, and a lot of the times it's like they don't necessarily move as a cohesive type of process. It's more so like you got multiple different teams focusing on multiple different things, and everything is disjointed and stuff like that. And then you have things that slip through the cracks during game development. So it's more so just like, instead of having like a whiteboard of like, hey, make sure the servers are working amazingly. You need to stress test the servers. We need to have multiple testing times and beta tests, early access tests, stuff like that. We need to do this multiple times and get a lot of people in the game to stress test these servers and stuff like that. That is a better approach than to just like, you know, hey, we got some beta tests or whatever. Because I know for a fact like there were only like a few people that were accepted into that. It wasn't just like a free fall. You know, so kind of unfortunate, but man, it just comes with the territory of, you know, doing an online only game. You know, but moving on though, we got some more information. God of War creator believes Spider-Man 2 is formulaic and lacks innovation. David, I think his name is David Jaffe or whatever. Yeah, when I first heard his take on this, it kind of set me aback a little bit. But then, you know, once I started, like, I watched this video and stuff and got a little bit more information, kind of like actually heard his words versus reading excerpts and stuff like that. You know, I can understand because he's coming from more of a gameplay mechanic perspective. You know, given the fact that he's like worked on, you know, previous games in the past and stuff like that, you know what I'm saying? He's coming from more so that, but he has some points that I agree with, some points that I don't agree with, but we'll get into that now. But yeah, so according to David Jaffe, Spider-Man 2 treads familiar ground and looks too formulaic for a massive AAA game in 2023. So here's why I could probably come in with this and just give my own, like, a little, my opinion with this is that sometimes innovation is not a good thing. You know, I don't know how many times there have been development companies that have tried to change and innovate. You can't see me, but I'm doing air quotes, trying to change and innovate things, and it doesn't work out. And it either doesn't work out because it's not implemented correctly, or it doesn't work out because that particular player base is not looking for that. So you have to understand who you're making the game for. Of course, they want to try to get the broadest audience they can possibly get. But at the end of the day, you need to know who your player base is and who you're making the game for. The original Spider-Man game, the Marvel Spider-Man game on PlayStation, not the original, but the original that Insomniac Games created. That very much so was a resurgence of the Spider-Man gaming franchise, essentially, and recreating that, like, because I think I heard him before trying to like recreate that spark that the original Spider-Man had. That is extremely hard to do in any medium. It doesn't matter whether or not it's games, movies, like, you know, anything like that, any type of entertainment medium like that. That's extremely hard to do. You know what I'm saying? Like, you can think back to stuff like Ghostbusters, right? Like, you'll never be able to capture that lightning in a bottle moment that Ghostbusters, the original, had versus the sequels. You know what I'm saying? Like, there are just things that, you know, having that initial experience is just a moment in time, and it's difficult to replicate that, you know? And I think that's where his innovation remarks are coming from, is trying to innovate upon game mechanics and things like that to try to recapture that experience and that moment that gamers had in the original Spider-Man game. And I don't think that's not an easy thing to do. Especially given the fact of the amount of time that they have to develop this game and put it out on PlayStation, because they didn't even change the engine. The engine that they created the original Spider-Man on is the same engine that they created Spider-Man 2 on. So it's not even like they don't have enough time to create an entire and create an entirely new engine to allow innovation and change like that to happen on the gameplay mechanic side. Granted, the engine that they use is very much so advanced. Like, Insomniac Games started out as a tech like developer. They didn't start out just making, like, you know, they were making engines. That's what they initially started out being, and then they kind of got into, like, you know, video games, which I think you know, like, they kind of got into, like, you know, games like Sunset Overdrive and stuff like that, which I very much so compare Spider-Man to. Spider-Man and Spider-Man 2 definitely remind me of Sunset Overdrive. But yeah, that's kind of like where I'm coming from with that. But, you know, they go on to say that, so from his perspective, Spider-Man 2 is a good game and will be well received. The game includes beautiful visuals and cinematics, but fails to go above and beyond. He specifically says that, and they quote him, the trailer shows Sony has been stuck in the gear they've been in for a long time. I can see that. He kind of mentioned, he pointed out games like Returnal, highlighting a few exceptions to the formulated first party PlayStation game. I can kind of see that. Like Returnal is so my experience with Returnal, and Returnal is very much so like really good game and stuff like that. But it's a roguelike. I don't know how, I don't know how innovative that is. The Returnal is a roguelike at its core. It's a roguelike with the good cinematic story behind it. So my thing is like, and especially that team that made Returnal has made other games similar to that for PlayStation as a PlayStation exclusive. So I'm trying to, I don't necessarily understand, I understand that game is very much so different than the cinematic style of games that you get with like God of War or with with Spider-Man and stuff like that. But it's like, thinking back on the development studio that makes Returnal, they've made other PlayStation exclusives that kind of fit in that similar vein. They've made roguelikes before. They've made things like that before. So I mean, for me personally, I think PlayStation has a good variety of different styles of first party studio games, or, AAA games is what he's kind of pointing towards. They have a good variety of it. My thing is that they have specific studios and games that make a specific type of game for their fan base, and it's like, this is just the second game, I would hope that, for the, Spider-Man 3, that they would probably go a little bit more above and beyond. I wouldn't expect them to do that now, given the second game. And the main reason why I wouldn't expect them to do that now is because you got, from a business standpoint, why break something that's not, why fix something that's not broken? If you had such the Spider-Man 1 was so well received, I think it sold I think the initial amount that it sold was 13 to 14 million copies. That's well received for a single player game exclusively on one platform. You know what I'm saying? And so it's I don't see why creating something again would necessarily be a bad thing, because innovation is not always, it doesn't always pan out for people. And I think trying to do something innovative for a second title is very much so extremely risky for Insomniac and Sony, because at the end of the day, those are companies and businesses, and they have a bottom line and they're trying to make money. So my thing is yes, I can understand that, innovation and going above and beyond and doing all these things like that, the game. So he goes on to kind of say, I understand that point, but it's you have to kind of understand too, is they're trying to make something that, especially given the fact that Spider-Man is it's bigger than just video games. So, you don't I don't want not me personally, but you don't want to just play around with something of that weight and magnitude in the entertainment space. You know what I'm saying? That's something that has to be a lot more calculated and done at a specific time versus, trying to throw that into the second game in the series right now, But he goes on to kind of say, another quote he said is, this bread and butter formula is getting stale. He goes on to say that, or they go on to say that he compares the first party PS5 release to recent hits like Zelda, Tears of the Kingdom, Baldur's Gate 3, and Starfield. Yeah, Spider-Man is definitely going to be, a good game like that. Baldur's Gate 3 is very much so an exception to these. I would even throw Baldur's Gate 3 into this, because this is very much so an ambitious game and very much so risky, which I appreciate the fact that they did that. But this is just a completely different beast. Baldur's Gate 3 is a completely different beast, And this, like, given the fact that Baldur's Gate 3 is essentially a AAA game developed by a AA studio, that is very much so risky. And you know, that Baldur's Gate 3 is just a completely different beast. I wouldn't even throw this in here, because Baldur's Gate 3 is nothing like Zelda Tears of the Kingdom, nor is it anything like Starfield. Those are like three completely different games. So I wouldn't even compare, like, you know, like Sony's first party PS5 releases, you know, to these games, essentially, because they're all different. They're all different games. Like, it's like Spider-Man is very much so a cinematic style game. You know, yes, it has an open world aspect to it. Yes, it has, RPG light elements to it. But Baldur's Gate 3 is a full-fledged RPG. Starfield is a full-fledged RPG. Zelda Tears of the Kingdom, full-fledged RPG. Like, these are like things that are like, you know, they're like apples and oranges, essentially. Like, yes, they're both video games and they both have RPG elements, but these are completely different scope. So I mean, like, I can't expect Insomniac to make Spider-Man Baldur's Gate 3. That's ridiculous. That's just ridiculous to ask, because their team isn't built around that. You know what I'm saying? Their team isn't built around that. Larian Studios, their team is built around making RPGs like that. They're built to make those type of games like that. Bethesda, their team is built to make Starfield, like, because they've done it repeatedly. You know what I'm saying? They've done it repeatedly. You just got to understand and know who's making the game. So Insomniac Studios, they're built to make that style of game. Trying to take, it goes back to what I was saying before with Redfall and Arcane Studios, right? You're expecting a studio who is equipped and built to make a multiplayer game. They've only have a track record of making single player games, and you're making them make a game that they're not equipped to make. So that's my thing, is like, you have to understand the studio in which you're trying to say they need to do innovation, as well as the other studios that develop these other games that you're comparing them to. It's apples to oranges. Such games, according to the God of War creator, are highly innovative and explore new ways of engagement with the medium. On the other hand, Spider-Man 2 takes a safer approach. I mean, I don't necessarily like understand, you know. Yes, they take a highly innovative, and they explore new ways of engagement with the medium, but I don't even think they explore new ways of engagement with the medium, because Larian Studios has been doing this multiple times with Definitive Original Sin 1 and 2. So it's like, the only difference is Baldur's Gate 3 is Definitive Original Sin 1 and 2 times 10. That's all that is. You know what I'm saying? Starfield is literally a rendition of Elite Dangerous. Like, these games that you're comparing them to, these games that you're comparing Spider-Man to, are very much so like games that they've already had a track record of being ambitious and being innovative and exploring new ways of engagement with the player. They've done that already. You can't expect Insomniac to become Larian Studios within a game cycle. You know what I'm saying? I think Spider-Man 2 was developed probably, I think it was like 4 years or whatever like that, because they use the same engine. It's not like they're changing. It's not like they created a whole new engine for Spider-Man 2 and put it on the PS5. They're using the same engine that they used to make Spider-Man with, and they made Spider-Man 2 with, and it's just put on the PS5, running on the PS5 hardware, and they're able to do just a little bit more with it, because the hardware for PS5 is substantially better than the hardware for the PS4. So it's just like, you know, I'm just trying to understand, I'm just trying to understand his point of view when it comes to this specific thing. But he goes on to say that he asserted that Spider-Man 2 leaves little to be desired with its presentation, but its gameplay mechanics lack innovation, and set pieces like the lizard boss are little more than a section of dodging and climbing at a basic level. I mean, I don't know what you expect. You know, it's that particular moment is meant to be cinematic. Like, that particular moment is meant to be cinematic. Yes, I completely agree. Like, you know, the gameplay mechanics, they do lack innovation. If the only thing you're doing is just swinging from one pillar to the next under a bridge from the lizard boss, you know what I'm saying? Yes, that is very much so basic in nature. But what is it trying to convey? You know what I'm saying? What is it trying to present to the player in that moment? It's trying to present a cinematic sequence in that moment. Because if you can see within the gameplay trailer that he's talking about, that 15 or 16 minute gameplay trailer that they showed at the PlayStation Showcase or the State of Play, I think it was PlayStation Showcase or State of Play. I think it was a showcase that they showed. It's showing the transitions, the fluid transitions in which it goes back from gameplay to cinematic, back and forth. That's extremely hard to do for a lot of different developers. You know what I'm saying? Starfield don't even do that often. Starfield doesn't even really do that. Everything is typically running in engine. It's hard to go back from cinematic and then fluidly go into gameplay like that. You know what I'm saying? And so my thing is yes, it's very much so basic in nature. I completely agree with that. But you know, what is it? What is the point of that particular thing? Let's go back to the beginning. What is the purpose in which that set piece exists for? And it's meant to be cinematic. You know what I'm saying? I don't think that in that moment it's meant to be as complex and crazy and over the top like that. You know what I'm saying? It's meant to kind of play into that cinematic moment and jump back and forth between cinematics and gameplay and stuff like that, because that's essentially what it does. As well as it's trying to tell a story too. So then you also have to factor in that piece of it, it's trying to tell a story. So it's more so I can't have all this bombastic, grandiose type of shit happening and stuff for the sole purpose of innovation, and then now it doesn't even play into the story element in which that moment exists for. You know what I'm saying? So like I said, it's a lot more nuanced, detailed, and there's more context within it. I completely get what he's saying though. The innovation, you know, is not there, but it's not there for a purpose. It's not there for a reason. Jaffe claims this problem exists throughout PlayStation's first party lineup, with the gaming giant focusing on a well-presented movie-like experience instead of new and engaging gameplay mechanics. I mean, is Spider-Man not a cinematic experience? Spider-Man is very much so a cinematic game. Because it exists within the entertainment medium as a whole. For instance, God of War, right? There was at one point in time where God of War was just, God of War had cinematics, but it was more gameplay focused and stuff like that. Now with the new God of War, with God of War 2018, that game has elevated itself because it's more cinematic than the original games were. That game is way more cinematic than the original 3. I don't count God of War Ascension. That game was terrible. But the original God of War games, the original trilogy, those games were very much so gameplay heavy versus cinematic heavy. And God of War 2018 is very much so cinematic heavy, as well as they were also able to find new ways to innovate the gameplay. But if I had to just say it personally myself, the cinematics outweigh the gameplay, in my opinion, because some of the same gameplay elements exist in the 2018 version that they did in the original. So they copied that. There's no innovation there. The whole the taking down bosses and quick time events and stuff like that, and pressing buttons, repeatedly pressing the same button, that existed in the original trilogy and also exists in 2018 as well as Ragnarok. So there's no innovation there. Even when it comes to specific fighting styles and stuff like that, the only innovation is the introduction of the new weapon, the axe that Kratos uses, as well as the RPG elements. That's the innovation. But the RPG elements aren't yes, it is part of gameplay mechanics, but that's more so just those are just perks and stuff that kind of change up the gameplay a little bit. But for the most part though, you know, that particular, the only innovation is the introduction to a new weapon, which introduces new move sets. So I mean, like, Spider-Man, the original one, already had multiple different gadgets and weapons and stuff like that originally, and different move sets originally. So I'm trying to figure out, like, what more innovation do you want from Insomniac? Me personally, like, what more do you think they could give outside of what they've already given now? You already have multiple different play styles. You can already do stealth. That was in the original game. You can already do stealth type of combat. You can do guns blazing, like go out in the blast and just jump in and just, you know, fight people. That existed already. You already have you know, the different type of web slinging styles. So like even just like swinging from building to building and stuff like that, they already had an RPG system in the original game that allow you to be able to change up how you swing and stuff like that in the original game. So when you, like, I'm trying to understand like the innovation part of it, because that's what he's specifically talking about. I'm trying to understand like the innovation part of it and the engaging gameplay mechanics part of it, because a lot of this stuff already existed in the original game. So I don't know what more he could possibly think they could do or add to it to elevate the game even higher, outside of just increasing the cinematics and the story, making the story better. At that point, they've already, this is what I like, don't be understanding, but I like, for me, I acknowledge the fact of, okay, when a development studio has created a solidified product and that game in and of itself functions phenomenally, you know what I'm saying? There's not much more that they need to do on the gameplay front. At this point, you just need to make sure the story works and don't be switching people's faces up again, which is extremely stupid. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, that's all they need to worry about, because they created a solidified foundation. They created a very much so stable foundation for that game. And so it's like, I don't expect them to just give me something amazing every time they give me a game, because the original game was already amazing. The original game already had as much content as it could possibly have. And now Spider-Man 2 has that, plus now you have the I guess you could call the innovation would be including Miles Morales into this one. Because that's a whole new character with an entirely different move set versus Peter Parker. Because we already know within Spider-Man 2, you're going to be flip-flopping from Peter Parker to Miles Morales. So I don't understand what innovation that you think they could possibly add outside of adding, you know, they already added new move sets. They've already added new move sets, web slinging, all of that stuff in the original game for Peter Parker. Then you got different styles of fighting with Miles Morales, and now you got both of them in one game, and they both have new abilities and powers and stuff that you're gonna be able to upgrade and unlock. Especially given the fact that another innovation would be introducing Venom, because I guarantee you when you play as Peter Parker with the Venom suit, you're going to have different abilities and play styles. Given the fact that Venom is a symbiote and has different abilities than just Peter Parker himself. So this is what I'm saying is, like, when you picking at, not necessarily picking at, but once you start actually like diving deeper into, you know, that instead of looking at it on a surface level, it's more so just like, what more can you possibly ask for them to do that they have not already done? I don't understand that, but you know, that's just me and my own personal take on it. But he goes on to say that there's a point where I think you start to see the lack of innovation. He goes on to say that for this reason, David Jaffe also believes he will not finish the game, as the excitement from the first few hours of playing Spider-Man 2 will eventually wear out, and the game will not stay engaging in the long term. I mean, yeah, that's his personal opinion. Me personally, I'm definitely going to finish the game, because at the end of the day, it's not just gameplay that keeps a game like this engaging. It's multifaceted. So it's like, you know, there's plenty of games that I play that are just strictly gameplay with no story all the time. You know what I'm saying? Like, and most of those games are early access, but it's like, you know, that tires out after a while. You know what I'm saying? And so my thing is like, I don't know how much gameplay innovation you could possibly add into Spider-Man, given the fact of what Insomniac has already created and thrown into the mix already. But the thing that is personally going to keep me engaged throughout the entire game is the story. That's what's going to keep me engaged, because I already know what to expect from Insomniac, and I already know what to expect from Spider-Man and the stuff they've already shown off for Spider-Man 2, as well as the stuff they've already added in the original Spider-Man game, as well as the DLC essentially with Miles Morales. So, you know, for me personally, I'm definitely going to finish the game, and I'm probably going to end up, you know, enjoying the entire game because of the new enemies that have been introduced. You know, the variable of Venom being introduced into this, the possibility that, you know, like Venom, like I'm curious to see who ends up being Venom, which I you know, think is going to be what you call it? Oh man, I'm blanking on his name now. Harry Osborn. So I mean, yeah, like it's, you know, it's for me personally, it's more so just like, I really want to know, what more do you want? What more can you ask for? You know what I'm saying? Like what more are you looking for? Please let me know in the comments, guys. I'm very curious about that. But moving on though, we got some more information. Dead Space creator leaves the Callisto Protocol studio to pursue new opportunities after its sky-high ambitions fall through. Yo, this is like ridiculous, man. But yo, like, so this game definitely had some rocky, you know, starts to it. It was definitely buggy, but even outside of the bugginess though, I will say, like, the story was very much so lackluster, as well as the world design was not good at all. Like the world, like everything looked the same. Even like the placement of the enemies just did not fit the world design. It's like when I played the game, I got to a point to where the world design, or not the world design, but I got to a point to where the enemies, they would just increase the enemy account, the enemy count for the specific set pieces that you enter into when you go to a next stage. Instead of strategically placing enemies in certain areas for you to sneak by, get through and stuff like that, they just like, nope, we're gonna throw like 10 of them on one single file line, and you need to sneak past them, and if you don't, you die instantly. Like, what the hell? Like, it was just crazy. But they go on to say that the Callisto Protocol had over $150 million poured into its development. Damn. And it was expected to rake in 5 million sold copies in short order. That didn't pan out. The game only hit 2 million copies sold by January 2023, far from those expectations. Yeah, I can see why he left. I don't think it was, you know, I mean, like, look, man, like, you got to take that L. I don't know. I mean, I guess, like, yes, logically it makes sense. Like, why would I stay here if, you know, the game is terrible or whatever? I don't know if it was just like he left to go find new opportunities, and are they just saying that, or he got fired? You know, a crafting representative said he left to pursue new opportunities. In a later statement he made to GameSpot, Sofield says the following: creating Striking Distance Studios has been an incredible journey, and I'm so proud of what we've achieved with the Callisto Protocol, a game close to my heart. While pursuing a new adventure is exciting, leaving Striking Distance Studios is bittersweet, but I know the studio is in excellent hands, and they have, you know, the new CEO is going to be Steve Papuzzi. I don't know. I'm butchered that name extremely, but he also worked on Dead Space 2 and Dead Space 3. So, you know, me personally, man, I think he probably should have just stayed and go down with the ship if he had a choice. You know, stay there, take that L on the chin, man, and then come back with a different game that's probably a little bit less in scale and ambition, a little bit less money poured into it, you know, probably go into the indie space with it, and come back swinging, come back hard, instead of just like, you know, oh, I'm finna just go find new opportunities and go wreck some new shit. You know what I'm saying? But you know, I don't, I mean, if he had a choice, I say he should do that. But if he didn't have a choice, if it was more so like, look, you fucked up, you need to leave, then, I mean, you ain't got no choice but to go find new opportunities, you know? But yeah, man, I thought this was pretty interesting, man. Just the amount of money that was poured into this game, and then the way that game ended up shaping up is like, man, like $150, like that. Most of that probably was just spent on the damn actor, the main character. Which I forget his name, but that's just like, that's what happens when you get like these. Me personally, I don't think big name actors should be in a lot of these games like this. Like, cause what effectively they are, they're just like draws essentially. And like games aren't movies essentially. Like, especially like within the gaming community too, is like most gamers don't really care like about a big name known actor being in their favorite game. You can get like no name actors, put them in a game, and if they do the voice acting amazingly and stuff, and the game story is there and the characters are engaging, and the you create some type of connection between the player and the character itself, it's like, there's no need to like spend a shit ton of money on big name actors and stuff. Like even like when it goes to, like, for example, like not Spider-Man, but the Super Mario Brothers movie, right? Like everybody would have been perfectly fine had you just kept the original voice actor to play Mario versus going out to go spend a shit ton of money on Chris Pratt. You know what I'm saying? It's like the people who you trying to make this movie for don't care about that. Most people probably don't really care for Chris Pratt, to be completely honest with you, especially given all the backlash that happened with his initial voice acting of Mario. So I'm like, people would have been perfectly fine with just the main guy. I mean, the original Mario voice actor voicing him in the movie. Like, that was just a missed opportunity. But yeah, man, like, yeah, I mean, if you didn't have a choice and you had to leave, and they just out here saying you had a choice, then yeah, I mean, I can understand why you need to find something, but don't go somewhere else and wreck some shit. You know what I'm saying? Like, come back swinging with something that's maybe different, and a little less of a budget. You know what I'm saying? But yeah, that's kind of like where I'm coming from with that, though, man. But yeah, moving on though. We got some more information. Ubisoft announces Tom Clancy's The Division 3, and this is exciting, especially given the fact that, man, I don't think The Division 2 was well received at all. Division 2 did, I think, worse than Division 1 did. But, in my opinion, I didn't enjoy The Division 2 that much. It just felt like, if you want to talk about lack of innovation, that game is legit the same as the original game. Like, they didn't even need to make The Division 2. They could have just updated the Division 1 and just, like, a lot of people like sit back and was like, oh, Overwatch shouldn't be it should just be Overwatch 1.5 or whatever the hell. That's exactly what the Division should have been, a Division 1.5. Only thing they gave you in the Division 2 was like new maps and stuff like that and new guns. You could have did that in the Division 1, especially given the fact that it's supposed to be a live service looter shooter. You could have just made that, like, you could have just did that and just added a new map, added new guns, stuff like that. Yes, they had different, like, they still had the Dark Zone. The Dark Zone was still available in the Division 2. My thing is like, if you want to talk about innovation, this game here actually needs innovation. But they're going to say that Star Wars Outlaws creative director Julian Garrity has become executive producer for the Division franchise. This is going to be interesting because that means that, like, the Star Wars Outlaws better be really good. Or we kind of know what's going to end up happening with the Division 3 if it doesn't shape up to be, a good game. If Star Wars Outlaws doesn't shape up to be a good game. It looks like it's going to be good, but if it ends up not being good, that may be a little bit of insight into what you may experience with the Division 3. Garrity will now oversee all of the Division games and products, including the Division 3. Ubisoft goes on to state that in his new role, Julian will drive the many independent production elements of the Division brand in a unified direction. This includes development oversight, operations, and creative vision together with the development teams around the world who are currently developing the mobile game, Tom Clancy's The Division Resurgence, The Division Heartland, and The Division 2. So yeah, once Star Wars Outlaws releases and that game is done, he's moving on to the Division and maintaining all of that. So it seems like they have a lot of faith in him. But they go on to say that Garrity will remain on Star Wars Outlaws through launch to ensure the game meets the intended creative vision and provides a great experience for players. So yeah, it seems like they have like a lot of, faith in Julian. Hopefully that game comes out amazing. If it comes out great, and it looks pretty good. If it comes out, really great and stuff like that, because, you're playing with Star Wars IP at that point. I think, you probably could get a different style within the Division 3, hopefully. Because I think the Division needs something different. that Division 2 is very much so similar to Division 1. And I think they need to use a new engine too. Whatever engine they're using for Star Wars Outlaws, they need to use that for the Division, or just create a whole new engine specifically built from the ground up for the Division. Again, because the Division 2 looks like the graphics look subpar. It was just, they need to come with a different approach with it. Me personally, I think they probably should go with a more like Tom Clancy Ghost Recon. What was it? Wastelands, I think. I can't remember the last one that they did. They need to go with that one though, because I don't know, man. That looter shooter space is getting real stale. You want to talk about stale? That looter shooter space is getting real you probably need to go in a different type of direction with the Division 3. Still keep it like a live service, I guess, or whatever you want to do with it. But yeah, kind of may change it up a little bit though. That's just my personal opinion though on it. But moving on though, we got some more information. Unity apologizes for controversial changes, walks back some of their, implementation pieces. So they go on to say in an open letter, published on Friday, Unity's president and general manager, Mark Whitten, apologized for the controversial changes announced on September 12th and announced that it was walking back some of the worst changes, including charging install fees for previously published games. Thank God somebody in there got a brain in that bitch. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, thank God someone in there is like, oh man, this is ridiculous. This is stupid. Why would we even tell people this? Luckily somebody in there got a damn brain. So, they go on to say that we should have spoken with more of you, and we should have incorporated more of your feedback before announcing our runtime fee policy. They're specifically talking about developers. So they kind of go over in this article like a breakdown of the new changes following the backlash. So first up, Unity confirmed its personal plan will remain free. It also said that it now has no plans to charge the controversial runtime fee on games built with the Unity personal plan. It also is increasing how much revenue devs can make on games made using this free version of the engine. The old limit was 100,000 and the new limit is now 200K. Whitten also said Unity is removing the requirement to have a made with Unity splash screen appear when players boot up the game. Yeah, all of that sounds very much so great, because the other thing that I went over in my last video was ridiculous. There's no need to even incorporate some of that shit, and it was just based on Riccatello's idea. So they go on to say with the next part of this, Unity also says no game with less than $1 million in trailing 12-month revenue will be subject to the runtime fee. Next, the letter announces that the fee will only apply to software developed using the next LTS version of Unity, which ships in 2024. So that's great. It's not retroactive, anything like that. Like I said before, good thing is that like you can choose whether or not to make your game on Unity personal for free and do it now before 2024, because anything made on the 2024 is higher than Unity personal. You're just gonna be subject to those new runtime fee changes. So Whitten quote Whitten saying, your games that are currently shipped in the projects you are currently working on will not be included unless you choose to upgrade them to this new version of Unity, and that's the one that's being released in 2024. Unity also promises that developers will be able to stay on the terms that apply to their version of the Unity engine as long as devs don't upgrade. Yeah, this was like something where they were kind of like, Riccatello wanted to kind of like go back and retroactively change terms of service. I think I think this was coming from Legacy Killer that I watched, where he kind of showed like a Reddit thread of them changing the terms retroactively before, like on games that were already made on the Unity personal side of things. I'm just like, what? Why? And it's all just greed, really. So he goes on to say that some runtime fees are not going away though. So I mean, as expected, given the fact of up here they also say that the new version of Unity, which will ship in 2024. So they go on to say that, however, Unity isn't removing the runtime fee or reversing its plans completely, and the last part of the open letter confirms this, with the company president referencing the runtime fee and explaining that developers would now have a choice For games that are subject to the runtime fee, we're giving you a choice of either a 2.5% revenue share or the calculated amount based on the number of people engaging with your game each month. I think that's very much so way better. And you'll see later on how developers react to that news. But giving developers a choice, 2.5% revenue share or calculated based upon the number of players playing the game, makes a hell of a lot more sense than the last version that they had, where you ain't really have a choice. So they go on to say that Unity says both of these numbers are self-reported from data developers already have access to, and that studios will always be billed for the lesser amount. That's better. Way better than that proprietary engine that Recatello was talking about before, and he didn't want to give any information on that. I'm like, what the hell? This is way better. Using self-reported data using self-reported information from data developers who that already have access, and they'll always bill you for the lesser amount, which is great. So here's some kind of reactions from developers that they kind of go over. So from one developer, Rami Ismail, said that it's effectively a 2.5% revenue share, no retroactivity left, LTS stability, no black box data. Yeah, I think that works for every use case. Another one goes on to say that this is looking reasonable. Posted Dan Gooddale. Though they've got a lot of work to do to repair the trust, nothing's stopping them from U-turning in another week. And then one other comment they highlight, I highlighted as well, is very happy that Unity removed the retroactivity of their new fees. And they also going to say, I'm another developer also says that I'm happy for anyone moving to Godot, but as I said before, at their own pace and will, doing it forced for a stressful situation can never be a good experience. But so, yeah, this is definitely a better, a step in the better direction, effectively. Yeah, you needed to come out and repair that trust. You need to come out and give better clarification. You need to change shit too as well. Because that whole initial statement, as well as the breakdown of the fees and everything like that was all greed based. It was all greed based coming from most likely a Wall Street goon, essentially. But they kind of updated, their thought process on this and their approach to it. But moving on though. Last bit of information today, what I want to talk about, Xbox may exit the gaming business by 2027, says Phil Spencer. So yeah, man, this is kind of some interesting information right here. And this is all solely based on their, projections with Game Pass. So they're going to say that Xbox holds its subscription service in high regard, with the head of Xbox himself, Phil Spencer, predicting that if subscribers aren't where they need to be by 2027, it could mark the end of Microsoft's activity in the gaming business. Man, that's kind of a very much so stark type of comment to make. Given the fact of how much money Microsoft has made off of just the Xbox brand itself over multiple decades. Yeah, man, they're putting all their eggs in the Game Pass, essentially. That's what it seems like. But Phil Spencer kind of goes on to say that I can safely say that if we do not make more progress than this off console, we would exit the gaming business. If this were the outcome, I don't believe we'd still be in business. And this is kind of mostly coming from, the PC side of things. They want more PC players to be subscribed to Xbox Game Pass. Here's the thing with that, right? Is PC gamers are very much so they don't like to have a bunch of different platforms. It took a while for people to kind of acquiesce and get used to Epic being in the space, given the fact that Steam was something that has existed for years. And I get it, I like having all my games in one place. Because it's just ridiculous for me to have all these different type of launchers, and I got multiple games with multiple different exclusivity deals that I have to open up different launchers, and sometimes the launchers don't even work well and shit. I can't say sometimes even when I download a game from playing on Microsoft Store and stuff like that, my download can be inaccessible because if there's an update, it breaks the damn download process, and then I run into an issue where I can't even install my game. So it's you know, I can see where those issues can arise, but man, putting all your eggs in one basket. Look, I kind of already knew that Xbox was probably going to get out of like, I kind of figured that Xbox would get out of the console space before just completely just getting out of the gaming space. Like I feel like me personally, I think you know, they're just going to eventually not make consoles anymore, which is kind of what Phil Spencer already hinted at like a few years ago. It's like I think, you know, and they're putting everything into Xbox Game Pass. But that this like last bit kind of gives some insight into it. So next generation of consoles currently in development by Microsoft will supposedly be made with Xbox Game Pass in mind, adopting a cloud hybrid system that essentially make gaming on Xbox platforms entirely digital. This is where I specifically think that they are going to go, more so than completely just getting out of the gaming space because PC players don't want to sign up for Xbox Game Pass. Like me personally, I think that, you know, they are not focused on console sales anymore. And Phil Spencer's already said this. He says that they're not competing with PlayStation anymore. The exclusivity thing, that's their thing they like to do. We are Game Pass cloud focused, cloud gaming focused, which is why they're, you know, developing xCloud and all that stuff like that. And so I think that's what you're going to see. You're just going to see xCloud eventually with Game Pass installed on it, and it may just come as it probably just be an application like installed on your TV. You won't even have a console anymore. It'll just be application installed on your TV or whatever like that. You know, or desktop application, which, you know, Game Pass already exists there, and then you just buy a subscription. You just get your subscription fee, and then that subscription comes with a specific amount of cloud storage that you're allotted, and that's how gaming is going to go forward with Microsoft. So, you know, kind of like that's very much so stark to kind of hear them be like, oh yeah, we're going to just get out of the gaming space because PC players don't want to sign up for Game Pass or whatever the hell. But it's like, you know, like there's other games on Steam and stuff like that more people are engaged in versus like, and on top of that, you can buy all of the games that are exclusive to Xbox on Steam anyways. So it's like, only thing you just going to end up doing is pushing exclusivity again, which is something that you don't want to compete with PlayStation with. So my thing is just go back to exclusivity instead of just sitting back talking about, oh, we're gonna get out of the gaming business or whatever. If you guys don't sign, if you PC players don't sign up for our Xbox Game Pass service and all this other shit, and it's just like, you know, you're effectively going to circle back around to exclusivity again. So instead of just acting like that cycle doesn't exist, how about you just expedite that service and start making exclusive titles again, and then putting them on, make them exclusive to Xbox Game Pass, and, you know, not on Steam or some stuff, which probably is going to end up causing an uproar. And then that way you could have more PC players sign up for Game Pass. But I don't know what kind of risk you want to take with that, you know. But that's kind of like my thought process on it, man. You know, let me know in the comments, man, what you guys think, man. You know, what you think of the Xbox news? What do you guys think of, you know, the Unity news? What do you think about Payday servers and stuff like that, and games always being online only and moving in that direction? You know, let me know in the comments, man. Let me know what you guys think. If you guys enjoyed this video, make sure you like the video. If you enjoy the content, subscribe to the channel and hit that bell so you never miss a video. I will see you guys next week, and thank you for tuning in.